Yeah, true. And another thing that occurs to me is that when they're talking to their friends about we should book with these people, or maybe after the booking's been made and the friends are being hesitant, um, and when we say friends, romantic partners, school groups, church groups, whatever, right? It's representing a group, obviously. Then they can be like, well, look, I spoke with him. He had answers to every single one of my questions. Uh, and if you look at the website, they have a lot of detail about the information. Like it can kind of lean back into the relationship, I guess, as a way of saying, look, we can trust these guys, or we can trust these people.
Exactly. That person essentially becomes your salesperson, right? So you're saying about you're selling to them. At the end of the day, they then have to go away and sell it to their group. So yeah, the
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, the more you can get them on side, then the better.
Are you interested in adding multi-day to your day tour business? Are you looking to understand growth and scale strategies in the multi-day world? Looking to finally crack the technology stack you need to organize, automate, and grow your business? Then join Tourpreneur in Seville, Spain for Tourpreneur Connect. Sponsored by We Travel, Yuli, and ABAC DMC Spain, November 27th to 30th, 2023, for an event unlike any other in our industry. Open to strictly 100 operators. Pete, Mitch, Chris, and other industry experts will guide you through the do's, don'ts, twists, and turns of running a multi-day tour business. Not only that, Tourpreneur are giving back as we will be bringing in local suppliers and businesses to help us run the event. We're also opening up to a number of locally based tour operators who can attend for free. So join Tourpreneur in Seville for Connect November 27th to 30th, 2023. And join us for an unforgettable experience of learning and connection in one of Europe's most unforgettable cities. Visit tourpreneur.com/connect for more info.
So this is a very interesting one. This is a conversation, I guess, that was always going to happen, but I never ever considered how or when. But it was inevitable, wasn't it, Russ? Is Russell here from Tourism Tiger?
Yeah, I know. Just can't stop gravitating towards each other, can we?
Yeah, that's right. We keep on finding each other. So Russ, Tourism Tiger. Well, what's the title that you're using nowadays? You are the of Tourism Tiger,
Yeah, so I tend to go with the director of business development.
Director of Business
I,
Development.
I like the term director.
Cool. So, yeah, it's a good one. Director. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, at Peak, I was a director of marketing, right? When I was doing the head of marketing thing over at Peak Pro for a couple of years. So yeah, no, it's a definitely it's a nice one. So obviously, Tourism Tiger websites for tour and activity operators.
That's right.
The largest independent web agency serving tour and activity operators in the world in terms of more websites built and managed than any other company. Is that right?
I'd like to think that. I've not actually gone through the statistics, but definitely
Yeah,
up there, I think. Yeah.
yeah.
Been
It
doing it
adds
now for 7 years now.
7 years,
8 years. 8 years.
8 years, and 100 and something people pay Tourism Tiger on a monthly basis, not just to build websites, but also to host them, maintain them. They have a team that's sitting right there. Anytime you want to email, you to make a change to your website. Obviously, if you've built your website with Tourism Tiger, there will be someone there to help make the change. And as a client of Tourism Tiger, I make use of that on a regular basis. But there's a unique part of our relationship, and I think a lot of listeners will be aware, but a lot of our listeners won't be aware, is that I was your boss, I guess is the best way to just determine it, right? I started Tourism Tiger. I started
That's
Tourism
right.
Tiger, ran it with Rebecca, ran it for a few years. And then you and Simon came along, you're doing a wonderful job, and uh, we started having, I guess, life forces pulling us back to Australia. And rather than close Tourism Tiger down, you and Simon took it over. Took over the management of it on a day-to-day basis. Is that the best way to summarize that story into a very short nutshell?
I think so, yeah. Yeah. It's been 5 years now, hasn't it, since that change happened?
Wow. So we ran it for about 3 years and you ran it for about five.
Yeah, yeah. So essentially I'm more tourism tiger than you now.
Yeah, for sure. It's true.
That's mad. Yeah, that's crazy. Never thought of that.
Yeah. Yeah, it is true that yeah you've spent more of your life than I have. So Russ has got a really amazing framework that he's going to share with us in a second for a simple way to think about how to make sure your website is adapted to the different types of visitors that come to your website, and we'll get to that soon. But Russ, what was it like to step into the void at Tourism Tiger? How were those first days after you made that decision and committed to
Well, first of all, not what void. No, I'm joking.
it?
No, it was obviously it was a big task because I mean one of the reasons why you're here now hosting this podcast is because you are a big name within the tourism industry. So for myself and Simon to step in there and yeah, take the reins and try to put our own stamp on the business. Yeah, it was definitely a challenge to do. I think we've done that. Obviously, it's been 5 years, so you'd hope so. Taking it in our own direction. So yeah, it's been a really good journey. So really enjoying it. Love working with Tourism Tiger. Love working with our partners as well. So definitely learned a lot over these last 5 years.
That's good. Yeah, I don't know about the big name in the industry bit, but you guys have definitely done a wonderful job. But at the first moments of doing it though, were there any moments where you regretted taking over the day-to-day of Tourism Tiger, where you kind of looked at the mirror and you're just wondering why have I done
um, I don't think so. There was times, and I'm sure every single person listening to this podcast thought this, but there's times during the pandemic where it was a case of why do we have to work in the tourism industry? Why is this happening to tourism? It was a very dark time for a lot of people, but no, aside from that, I've loved every moment of it, definitely.
Wow. And so where's the team based at the moment? What's the split look like?
So we've got probably over 50% of our workforce still based in Chile, in the head office there in Santiago, as we know, Sanhattan they call it. And yeah, aside from that, we've got a few people over here in Europe. So myself and Simon are now both based in the UK. Simon's in London, I'm in Manchester. And then yeah, we've got a few people across Europe too. But
So
we've maintained Santiago as our head.
that's amazing. So yeah, we started that office in Chile because the Chilean government gave us a grant to move to Chile, and we started putting job ads up, and we're getting a lot of applications from expats, like people who are from all over the world who are living in Chile, who there weren't too many options besides English teaching, and so we started recruiting an amazing team, in a way that we would never have expected, and that momentum has never really gone away, which is quite special. Okay, you got Europe, you got UK, you got all that sort of stuff. The majority of the customers from there's not one particular place, right? You've got there's tons of tourism guide customers from the United States, lots from UK and Australia, but it's a pretty broad mix.
Yeah, that's right. I'd say the majority are in the United States. We've got around 45% of our client base in the United States and Canada, so North America. And we have quite a few people in the Caribbean as well. That tends to be a big region for us. Australia, New Zealand, and then yeah, all across the world. We've got people in Tanzania, people in Hong Kong, in Norway. Yeah, just all around, very eclectic. So yeah, a lot of different things going on.
And before we get into the meat of it, I have to ask, and you can be give an honest answer, right? So we have 3 websites with Tourism Tiger, and we've paid market rate each time, right? We pay, as best as I can tell, we're paying the market rate on our monthlies as well. Is that right? No special deals for us. So feel free to give it to me, Russ. Like, what are we like as a client now that was at the boot is on the boot is on the other foot?
This is being recorded, Matt, so I'm not quite sure.
It is being recorded. And like, there's what is it? What's the answer?
No,
I'm ready to hear the truth. I'm ready to hear the truth.
No, you're very valued as a client, definitely. And yeah, you keep us busy with tickets. But yeah, I think that's important that we have a solid base of people who really value the service and get the most out of it. And then Matt, you're very much aware, we're currently working on your new projects as well, and yeah, you've been really pushing the team to deliver something that really reflects your brand on there as well. You know, at the end of the day, when a client is very specific about what they want, it really pushes us to deliver. So yeah, it's something that we really value.
Great, cool, sweet. So Russ, you are here you're going to be joining us a few times, I hope. This is not going to be the one episode, but today what we're going to be talking about is the different types of people, the personas, right? To build your website around, the different types of people who are looking at your website and how to tailor the information to those people. So should we just go straight into it? Like what is this category of before we go into each one, what is this concept of personas and how did you arrive to it?
Yeah, so I mean, in terms of the personas, what we did was we sat down and we thought about, when we're designing a website, who we actually building and designing the website for, who we're writing the content for, who's actually going to be visiting the site. And everyone has a certain profile, a certain segment that they're targeting, whether that be boomers or millennials or Gen Z. But at the end of the day, even amongst those segments, you're going to have people reacting and responding and essentially wanting information to be presented in different ways. So the idea of the personas is that, yes, you might be aiming for the boomer market, North American, educated, but we want to actually hit each of those people, how they actually want to absorb the information, how they want to digest it.
Yeah, exactly. So I've heard these personas before. They now that I've got a travel business, they very, very much resonate with how our business works. So let's rip the Band-Aid. Let's stop making people wait. Russ, what's the first persona?
Yeah, so the first persona that we have, we call Rush Hurry Rose. So Rush Hurry Rose is the kind of person who essentially, when they're browsing, they might have very, very specific information that they want answered in order to book a tour. So let's say they have a certain budget, or maybe they're only in town for a particular day, or they want to visit a certain location. So they'll have these very specific parts that they're wanting to tick off, and they don't necessarily have the time to sit down and start digesting each individual website. So because they're quite time poor, they might essentially just go onto Google, type in their search term, and start opening all the tabs and just going one by one through, trying to either mark someone in or mark someone out. So with someone like Rose, go on, sorry.
Okay. This is me. I'm Rush Hour Matt, and you've just described the exact way that I look daily. Over 15 tabs and just going really, really quickly. Like, look at your price, looking at the exact thing I want to do. Just you remember?
I remember when I first started at Size and Tagging, you were training me, and I was looking at your Google Chrome, and it was a mess. Yeah, no idea how you find your way around there.
I've actually got like 25 tabs open right now as we speak, and when people walk past my computer and they see me using it, they always freak out. They're just like, "Oh my god, how can you live that way?" Well, Rush Harry Matts or Rush Harry Roses, that's how we roll. So it's not just a case of having multiple tabs open, is it? Like, what is? Tell me more about Rose, I guess.
Yeah, so with Rose, she clicks on the link onto your website. It needs to load straight away, right? It needs to be quick loading for someone like Rose. If she's going to be waiting a few seconds, she's just going to click off and go on to the next site, right? So it has to load very quick. That's the first port of call. Now, because she's got very specific information that she's searching, navigation needs to be really clear as well. So there's this concept that some people will go straight to the menus to browse, and other people will like to scroll through the site to find the information, right? So we need to basically pull out that key parts of information, or make sure that navigation is really clear so she knows where to go to find that information. So that's kind of your first step, that she can navigate very easily either through the menu or through your homepage.
Right, because she'll be filtering out. So, and this is, like I said, this is the exact way I do it. I open up a ton of tabs and I'm trying to filter as quickly as possible. I'm trying to reach to a short list as quickly as possible. So if there's anything about that website that puts me off, I'll just close it. I'll give it probably 5 or 10 seconds, right? Um, uh, but you also mentioned that my specific things that we're looking for as well, right? So effectively, it's just a very, very rapid prioritization exercise to then figure out who's actually worth looking at.
Exactly. So that's it. She comes on the website and you've got to stand up to that first impressions test. Then it's a case of, cool, can I get to that tour page that I'd be interested in? So again, really clear navigation onto that tour page. Then is your key information pulled out? Is your key information visible without Rose having to scroll through text? Because again, if it's not standing out, she's just going to go, cool, these people aren't living up to what I'm looking for. Next one. So yeah, just pulling that key information out. What time does it start? What days does it run on? How much does it cost? These are very clear, basic parts of information that can rule you in or rule you out.
Mm-hmm. And it's something that's worth adding here, actually, now that because obviously this is being multi-day. I think some people will be thinking about this going, well, I sell multi-day and people tend to read my stuff a bit more, and maybe they do, but think about it, maybe they don't, right? Like we have a lot of clients who get in touch with us who've clearly not read any aspect of the website, right? Despite it's been built by Tourism Doctor, it's quite clear, right? But they'll get in touch very, very quickly because they want to check one or two specific things, and I think it's easy to think that Rush Hour Rose, maybe that's a day tour thing, but it's most definitely, having lived this, it is a multi-day tour thing as well. That people, even though they maybe were quite well invested in your brand or quite well invested in a certain type of experience, which is our case, right? Like we have actual fans of our brand, which is cool in terms of Patch Adventures and also our other brands as well. We're starting to develop fans. But even then, they'll form one wrong impression and they won't go, they'll just be like, no, that tour's not for me. And they're on a sales call with one of our salespeople for one of the other tours, and the salesperson will bring something up, and they'll be like, "Oh, well, I didn't want to go because of X, Y, Z," and they're like, "Well, no, that's actually, you formed an incorrect impression about a tour." So obviously, we've got the speed, we've got the navigation, we've got the clear information, but even that will only get you so far with Rush Hour Rose, right? It will help you, but it'll only get so far. So what are some other things we can do to make sure Rush Hour Rose gets the information that she needs in order to make the snap decision in our favor?
Yeah, well, it's something you mentioned there, Matt, about people getting in touch. Like someone like Rush Hour Rose probably wouldn't even bother, getting in touch if she didn't have that key information answered. So yeah, just like you say there, you still get people who will get in touch and they might misinterpret certain parts of information, but there's enough there that they have managed to take it to get them to spend time speaking to your sales team. So yeah, with Rose as well, what else can we pull out? So some people will have like testimonial pages, which are very good, and it gives someone a place to find testimonials. But if you're able to pull those testimonials and interweave them into the site and make them clear, then again, someone like Rose, she's coming across those testimonials as she's searching for her information. So if there's anything else that we can, like say, interweave into that site and make it more intuitive when she's scrolling through, then those kind of things will help increase her level of certainty when she's coming to buy. But another thing that's very, very key, especially if you are doing single day experiences but also multi-day experiences as well, is allowing people to find out how to take the action. So once they've actually built their interest in your product, in your service, what do they do now? Do they need to get in touch? Do they need to ring you? Do they need to fill out a form? Do they need to book online? So making sure that it's really easy and really intuitive to find that next step in the journey.
Is there any special tricks or is that not worth delving into?
So there's different things that we can do with the photos, with the text as well. So making sure that your text is very clear in terms of your headers, right? So a lot of the time people want to, I can't think of a better word than wishy-washy, but sometimes people want to use headers that elicit certain like connotations and feelings which can be very good, but they also your headlines also need to be clear. It also needs to be obvious like what this relates to specifically for someone like Rose. So I'd loop that in. There's other things to bring up with the images and that we can talk about when we talk about other personas.
Yeah, so clear, not clever. That's one of an expression that I learned a few years ago that kind of comes back to what you're talking about, that we've seen it so many times with tour activity operators. When I was running Tourism Tiger, and now that you're having people wanting to be quite, they want to put like a fancy quote right front and center on the website, right?
Mm-hmm.
They want to occupy the most valuable website with an inspirational quote about travel from Ernest Hemingway, right? Which is lovely, but people just don't sit down to look at websites. People will sit down to look at websites to solve problems, to get to answers, right? It's quite rare that someone goes to a tour activity website to linger. So, especially if that person's name is Roche Rose. So, but I'm curious. I'm starting to become curious. So, because I've heard this before, but I can't remember which one's next.
Eddie is someone who is all about excitement, right? It's about emotions. He's really invested in what this tour or what this experience is going to do for him. So with someone like Eddie, essentially, he lands on the website and we want him to already be feeling that experience, right? So in terms of like the layout of the site, in terms of the images that we're using, the branding of the site, and how that feels, and what kind of emotions we can pass on to someone like Eddie, that's really important in getting him to a level where he's going to be ready to move forward and actually book. And if we can build up his level of experience, that is what levels of excitement, sorry, then that's essentially what he's going to do. So,
all right. So what I'm gathering is Eddie is not going to be sitting there reading big walls of text. Is trying to you're trying to talk about, they're kind of trying to find the exciting bits and sort of really place themselves in the moment.
Exactly, yeah. So it's very emotive kind of bio that we're talking about here. So with Eddie, he's going to read the content, but again, we need to make sure that content really grabs him. That he can become immersed in the experience through that content. So what can we pull out here? What parts of information are going to be important, or passages of text are going to be important to help with that. In terms of stuff like testimonials, again, he's looking for the kind of testimonials saying what an amazing time it was. He's looking for specifics of the actual experience within those testimonials as well. So rather than, oh, we had a great time, it was an amazing experience seeing antelope. I can't think of a more exciting animal. A lion. Lion's more exciting, isn't it? Getting that close to a lion. So if we can talk about the actual experience itself, then he can start picturing himself within that experience with the testimonials. Also, I mean, coming back to Rose. Sorry, Matt. I'm getting a bit immersed in this myself now, but also coming back to Rose when we're talking about making it a really clear and logical journey through the website, making sure it's intuitive. We don't want him to have a bad experience on the site. He has to, find the information that he's looking for as well, and it has to be intuitive. Otherwise, we're going to kill off his excitement around the package if the website's not living up to it.
Did you know Tourpreneur also has a Facebook community of over 7,000 tour operators? If you are not a member, then search for Tourpreneur on Facebook and join a thriving community of tour operators and other travel professionals, all of whom learn from each other as well as from Chris, Mitch, Pete, and many other industry experts. By becoming a member, you will be notified first of any events, meetups, and exclusive content. Join the Tourpreneur community today. Facebook.com/group/Tourpreneur.
So, you hit upon, I just want to come back to the text here, right? Because people can often be very literal in how they describe their tours, or when they do try to describe and try to write it well, they sometimes go very, very flowery. And when writers join our team, that's one of the first thing we have to kind of delete from their head is, and I'm talking about freelancers, not like I have a full-time team of writers just sitting there. Not yet, anyway. The what we find sometimes is that people can default to using extremely flowery language, very big, kind of fancy adjectives. But one thing I noticed when Tourism Tiger did our Camino Women website was that the team was really smart in that they didn't do that. Right? They were much more about trying to put you in the moment, emphasize the right experiences, and kind of paint a scene, as opposed to talk about, oh, you'll be going, you'll be the sparkling this and the sparkling that, or the whatever, the sumptuous this and scrumptious food and all these kind of adjectives that we try to use when we're trying to impress our teachers when we're 15 years old, right? But if that's not what Eddie Experience is necessarily looking for, because Eddie Experience kind of will probably kind of trip up on those words, right? It's kind of be like, kind of almost, doing that kind of thing almost bogs the experience down of reading, and and the way of Tourism Tiger, where there's kind of much more, I think, simplicity built into the actual words used to enable the writing to flow, so that people can just flow without getting distracted by these words, is something that I personally feel is quite effective. Is that something that you've had much of a hand in, Russ?
Yeah, so I'd like to take credit for that, but no, we've got a great content team. So in terms of content team, there is a lot of training that goes on to make sure that happens. And I mean, you touched on it there about the words that you use. So the average, and it always tends to be Americans. Maybe it's only Americans that do these kind of this kind of research, but I think the average American has a reading age of 8th grade, which is what, 13. So yeah, if you apply that to the entire public, you don't want to be using, words that you'd only find in research papers or, in like big worlds of prose. It's about making sure that it's accessible language. And yeah, like you say there, making sure that it's very specific to the experience that it's describing as well. So yeah, I'd say I'd love to take personal credit for that, but yeah, yeah, the team are very good at what they do, and that training has been continuous.
Nice. So, all right. So Raspberry Rose rushes through the website, hopefully finds the correct information. Eddie Experience kind of immerses himself through the photos and the videos and gravitates towards the sort of stuff that in the website that will help Eddie understand where they're going to really have that feeling. What's the next persona?
Yeah, so next persona that we've got is not necessarily the polar opposite of Eddie Experience, but we've got hesitant Henrietta, who, yeah, I mean, the name is what it says in the tin, right? So Henrietta has a bit more anxiety about making a booking or making that commitment, about choosing the right operator to go with, essentially, as well as other things about the actual tour as well, potentially.
Yeah, this is amazing. Every persona we bring up, I can instantly feel the people, right? So with Eddie Experience, we've got a 24-day Silk Road trip that we're selling. It's selling quite well, and I was talking to one of the guests the other day, and I was walking her through a couple of last minute changes that needed to be made to the itinerary, and she didn't care, right? She's like, "Well, Matt, I know I'm in your hands, and I know you've got I know wherever you take us into Tajikistan, it's going to be incredible. You don't need to worry." And like that is Eddie Experience to a T, right? That
Yeah.
is much more about chasing the experience than it'll be like, oh my god, on day 10 they said they would have this and this and that. There's much more about the vibes. Whereas hesitant Henrietta is wanting to know what exactly happens to me if one of us gets COVID on this trip, or what about the restrictions, or what about and I think the COVID references will probably date pretty fast, but they'll be asking well, on day 7, this is something that happens so much. Like on day 7, I noticed there's a bit of a hike through this particular area. I'm just wondering, like, is the ground stable, or is it like asphalt, right? And people like with very, very specific questions about these little details. That's hesitant Henrietta, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. So it could be about, like you say, the actual details of the experience itself. So maybe Henrietta's not feeling as physically fit as she's felt in the past. So maybe she's worried that she's not going to be able to keep up with the rest of the group with certain things. maybe, like you say, she's worried about something going wrong with the tour and what kind of, can't think of the word, what kind of procedures you put in place to deal with those kind of issues that might arise. And also, Henrietta could be worried about your company, right? So someone comes onto your website, they've never heard of you before. Like, why should they trust you with, in your case, Matt, some of your experiences are 2 weeks. So, why should I spend, thousands of dollars and 2 weeks of my life with your company? Like, how can I trust you?
Well, I know the answer now. I just put a big quote up. Maybe that'll be enough. But for all those people who don't have the benefit of Russell Astle-Coates saying beautiful things about them on podcasts, how do you help Henrietta reach her conclusions?
Yeah. So with Henrietta, I mean, there's some very basic things that we can do that, when added together, can create a full picture. So first and foremost, the website has to work, right? It has to look like it's being maintained, looked after. Someone comes on your website and you've got all your tours listed from 2021 still. Then she's thinking, well, hang on, are these guys even still operating? So, it needs to feel like it's being maintained, looked after, and that it works. Links aren't broken. You're going through to the right section of the site, etc., etc. So, make sure that it works. Another thing that we can do with someone like Henrietta is making sure that we're including, like, again, just like with Eddie, testimonials. We're getting her peers to talk about the experience that they've had. So she knows that she's not the first guest that you've ever looked after, or that you're not just sat somewhere in a far-flung country taking her money. So making sure that we're bringing in other people's experiences, but then also other measures of credibility. So we can build credibility by talking about associations that you're a member of, right? So that again, that's being reviewed by your peers rather than their peers. It could be that you've appeared in different magazines or been featured on websites or newspapers, those kind of things. So, showing as featured in, showing how many guests you've looked after, or what your personal experience is. So I know one thing with Patch is Rebe is a big part of Patch, isn't she? And like really kind of speaking from the individual, this is me, this is what I do, this is what I'm looking to, the experience I'm looking to give you, these are my values. So they can really start resonating with the people behind the business, and not just, this random website that I've just come across whose name I can't remember. I'm seeing someone's face here and I'm really engaging with them.
Yeah, one thing we're speaking with clients lately, and we do have a sales team, but I'm a big believer that you should never ever lose touch with your clients. And we have a process, Russ, that I don't think I've ever told you about, called Zero Daylight. And every week, every single person in the company must attend a call with a client. They don't have to do the call, but they must attend a call with a client. So even if you're a customer facing, if you work in marketing or if you work in trip design, you come to the call and you listen to how people are reacting, the hesitations they have, the questions they have, what excites them about a trip, and all that sort of stuff. It means you never lose touch with the guests. And something that came up on a call quite recently was, and this is classic hesitant Henrietta, was asking us about stuff we posted on Facebook, but had clearly read like months worth of posts on Facebook, checking us out, right? And picked up on like one very big post that we put up, like she picked up on one little comment in the 5th paragraph, right? About and this was a post where we were criticizing the government travel alert system of Australia, which is a rant for another day. But that's classic hesitant Henrietta. If she's not comforted yet, she will go through, and obviously it can be hesitant Henry as well. We just went with, I think we're just going with Henrietta just for the sake of having someone we can latch onto here. But we'll go through in detail to try to get answers to those questions. So I think that's probably one of the good things about hesitant Henrietta is they give you a chance, right? They give you a chance, And if you do the work of updating your descriptions, your FAQs, making sure that your content addresses those objections, and making sure that your social media profiles are active and live and posting photos of guests on the trip, you can really have a shot at getting hesitant Henrietta through the doors. Before we move on to the next persona, is there anything more that we should know about hesitant Henrietta?
Yeah, so I mean, I touched on it there when I was talking about reviews, and I think you've kind of brought it in there. You mentioned social media, but really reaching out for testimonials, for reviews after people have visited and taken part in your experience. So, whether that's going to be via TripAdvisor or Google reviews, set on your platform and really push that, because that's going to really help your credibility when it comes to someone like Henrietta. And then the last point. Yeah, and just coming on to the last point before we move on as well, is the photos, right? So can we answer her concerns via the photos? If I come on your site and every single photo feels like a stock image, then again, it's like, are you really there? Are you really delivering this experience? So, I'd like to see, if it's yourself or your or, your member of your staff, actually delivering that tour, that experience, or, are we just showing people who are 25 years old who look like they're on the latest series of Love Island? We need to see that different demographic and the people who are actually engaging with your tours, so someone like Henrietta can feel more secure in making that booking.
Yeah, that's right. That's a great point. Sometimes the selection of certain photos generates more objections than it actually solves. Right? Because if people see people in the photos that don't look like them, it makes them worried that they'll fit in. When it comes to women's walking, communal women, one of the big reasons that people sign up to our trips is because they've been on trips in the past where there have been gung-ho men who just want to go off charging all over the place, and they feel they have felt in the past a little bit left out, or made to feel like they're less worthy, or make them feel like they're holding the group up. And a big reason why women sign up for women's only trips is so that they don't have to go through that again or ever have that feeling. And so if you have an exercise experience that shows tons of people with buff bodies all over the place, people crushing it, then the people who are just ordinary people might look at that and be like, oh, I'm not going to fit in. So, Russ, how many more personas do we have?
So we've got two more to talk through.
Mm-hmm.
So the next one, yeah, next one is questioning Quentin. So in many ways, Quentin is quite similar to Henrietta. Yeah, essentially, again, as you can tell by the name, I mean, these things kind of explain themselves. Quentin's the kind of person who just wants to have, they've probably printed off their itinerary before they've arrived, they've probably annotated it, they've got all these different expectations, and essentially before making the booking, they're going to want all their questions answered in order to get themselves, like Henrietta, that level of certainty of moving forward.
Right.
So,
yeah. I'm seeing it right now. Like, I guess the other day, she was asking very specific questions about should she get rabies vaccine to go to Kyrgyzstan, and asking questions about should she bring probiotics to the trip, and then was asking about what about headache tablets? Can we bring a tablet that contains codeine? There's things like that I've never been asked before, and then I Google it, and it turns out it's actually a topic. But that's questioning Quentin to a T.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, we touched on it before with Henrietta about, keeping your frequent asked questions updated is a really key one. But also, can we answer someone like Quentin's questions, questioning Quentin's questions? Can we answer those questions in the actual itineraries themselves? Can we preempt things where, that person's not kind of feeling a bit empty after reading through the full itinerary, saying, well, I still don't know what I'm actually going to be doing, or I still don't understand, are you going to cater to my gluten-free diet? So rather than that person having to get in touch with you and, you having to, and they having to spend time going through this, can we answer the questions there and then? So by the time they do contact you, they're more in a position to buy.
I love it. And again, this is something your copywriters do. The copywriters here at Saga do. I remember this because if you have, for example, your dietary restriction one, right? You might talk about and you might mention that like in tonight where we might be visiting, one of Sicily's most famous pizza joints. It's been open since 1820, and the owner Roberto is one of the most lovely men in Sicily, and he's booked a corner in the restaurant for us, right? And then you might say, and yes, don't worry if you have dietary restrictions, we can also cater for you too, right? That's a perfect example of where the question is coming to someone's mind and answering it on the spot rather than forcing them to dig through information, right?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. So in the last year, I've kind of transitioned to vegetarian diet. So those kind of things to me before, I wouldn't even think about it. It was just cool food, let's do it. But now I'm having to, really think about every time I go on an experience that involves food. I'm really having to think, okay, are these guys going to cater for me, or am I going to enjoy it just as much as I would if I was eating meat? So yeah, it's very important that we're answering someone like Quentin's questions.
Beyond dietaries, any other examples of typical sort of people we should keep in mind, or typical kind of angles we should keep in mind?
Yeah, so before, I mean, you mentioned the person traveling to, was it Turkmenistan?
Kyrgyzstan.
Yeah, so yeah, you were talking about, the things that they should bring with them. Yes, things they should bring with them. What's included, what's not included. It could be about, if San Francisco, we've done a couple of we've done a boating site in San Francisco, sailing boats, and people turn up to San Francisco in shorts and t-shirt because hey, it's California, isn't it? But as people who've been to San Francisco would know, it's not shorts and t-shirt weather a lot of the time. So, how should people dress? What sort of clothes are going to feel comfortable in? There's a myriad of different parts of information, different questions that we can answer through the site depending on what your experience is. So a lot of the time for tour operators, it's kind of sitting down and thinking, okay, what mistakes do I see, or what calls am I answering? What do people constantly ask me? How can I answer these questions on the website?
Yeah, and I've had conversations with operators who are like, well, they ask these questions, but it's so clear. And you look at the website, it's like, well, dude, it's not clear, right? And so it's not just about answering those questions that come up frequently on calls. It's about thinking about the placement of the information. We had a couple of people come in the last 48 hours asking if we include flights. And we had a bit of a discussion, and we're like, it's right there. And then we're like, it is really right there. It's not included, but at the same time, it's not in the first few paragraphs. So then we have to have a bit of a think. Do we want to shift out the information in the first few paragraphs? And in the case, like, no, we actually want to emphasize something else. So it just has to live where it is. We have to accept the question. But I think if you haven't really had a thought about those kinds of trade-offs that need to be made in order to communicate accurately, and I guess layering the information to appear at the appropriate time, then there's a good chance there's a lot of mistakes being made in your written descriptions. So cool. Questioning content. Yeah. Now I am questioning. You got to say?
Yeah, sorry, just kind of to finish off with Quentin, a few things that you can do beside the site itself, or in addition to what we spoke about in how you lay out the information, is maybe on your contact us page, you can have a link there to frequently asked questions as well. If there's anything that you are looking to be answered, then, check out our frequently asked questions page. If someone does fill out the contact form, maybe on the follow-up email that they receive, like the notification email, again, there could be a link on there as well, or maybe you include the frequently asked questions within that auto response. So, a member of the team is going to contact you within 24 hours. In the meantime, take a look at our list of frequently asked questions. There's an operator who we're working with at the moment who's going to be adding a chat bot to the site. And again, that chat bot is there to answer the questions that people might get in touch with. So there's a few different things like that you could do. Or, you could always have live chat on the website. But one thing that a lot of the time people say to us, yeah, cool, I want live chat. But then when you ask them the question, who's going to be looking after it? Well, I am. Well, you've already told us that you're going to be operating the tours as well. So what happens if someone gets in touch in those 4 hours? So sometimes having live chat can actually be a drawback, right? So it's about making sure that if you do have live chat, then someone makes it their priority to answer any inquiries that come through. And if that's not going to be the case, then yeah, having a chat bot could be a good idea as well.
Yeah, having that, yes, yeah. I mean, I could tangent and talk about that all night long, but I am questioning what's the other persona that follows after questioning Quentin.
We might question that, Quentin. So the last one that we've got is someone who we call Representative Ryan, and given a multi-day tour experience, you're going to have people who sign up on their own, who come and join a group. But then I'm sure you also have small groups of people as well who get in touch and who take part in the tour, the experience too. Yeah, so Representative Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the person who's actually going online. They're the ones doing the research. They're the ones who essentially are the decision maker at the end of the day, and they're going to be the ones who are going to place the booking. So Representative Ryan is essentially your big money customer.
Mm-hmm. So what should I understand about Representative Ryan?
I'm glad you asked, Matt. So Representative Ryan, Ryan's an amalgamation of the other characters, right? So Ryan could be a little bit Rush Hoary Rose. They're probably going to have 4-5 people's input in what they're looking for. So it could be quite specific in terms of like maybe the group's only available for a certain week, right? That they've got to find the tour for, or maybe it's a case of the location where they want to go, or again, headline details. So they might again have 20 different companies that they're trying to filter through to see who can actually do that experience that's going to fit with the group. So yeah, all the same principles with Rush Hoary Rose. Then we're talking Eddie experience, right? So at the end of the day, Ryan, if he's doing this, making this decision, if he's the person who's going to be sending the group to one particular company, his ass is on the line, right? He's the person who everyone's going to come back to and say, "Oh well, I didn't really enjoy that," and he wants to avoid that happening at all costs. So he wants to make sure that this.
Yeah, he wants. Yes, that's right. Yeah. Like between Rebecca and myself, I'm the person who makes the bookings, right? And if I screw it up, she lets me know about it. She lets me know about it.
Exactly.
So Representative Ryan, I feel like I'm Representative Ryan sometimes, and Rush Hour Rose other times, right? And when I'm Representative Ryan, I'm not looking through the lens of my own experience. I'm looking through the lens of the people I'm booking on behalf of, whether it just be my wife or whether in a group. And that's Representative Ryan's got a big load on his shoulders, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And because of that, you then start veering into the hesitant Henrietta stage because, he doesn't want to make that mistake. It's amplified. So again, really checking into the credibility of the business and making sure that this is the right decision. So I know personally with myself, if I'm booking an experience, I tend to get through to the booking page and then I actually reopen the website in another tab and then start going through the decision process again, just to make sure that I'm ready to hit purchase on the first tab. So yeah, essentially, are we ticking all of Henrietta's boxes? And then the other thing is that none of us like to look stupid as well, right? So let's say we make that booking as Representative Ryan, we go back to the group. Hey guys, I've just booked that tour. Immediately you're going to be fielding a ton of questions. Like, oh, well, what time does it start? Like, do they pick us up from the hotel? Like, what do I need to take with me? And so they know that they're going to get this barrage of questions. So they're then having to preempt those questions. though, they become questioning Quentin themselves before they make that booking. So, yeah, big money customer.
And if it's one of those processes, yeah, for sure, a big money customer. If it's one of those processes where they're going obviously through a $5,000-$10,000 booking or whatever, and the group is asking those questions before the booking, then they end up being like almost like a relay messenger between the group, and giving them that information, I guess, is one aspect of it. But being very responsive is another aspect of it. I think one thing I found if we talk about Representative Ryan, talking with them on the calls, they call up and they're asking a couple of questions, and then within a couple of minutes, it's starting to just peter out. And I say to them, would it help you if I just kind of went through all the typical questions other people ask and just tick through them one by one? And whenever people hear that, it's pretty much always like, oh yes, please, let's do that. Every single question, let's do them all. And it's almost like a palpable sigh of relief. Okay, I mean, I've got this guy's in my corner, right? And then you spend 25, 30 minutes just going, okay, so the next question that people tend to ask is about visas, right? So I've got good news. If they're Australian and New Zealand passport holders, they actually won't need a visa on any of those trips. Really? Yes, really. Blah, blah, blah. But what if they're UK? Well, I actually have to check on UK. Blah, blah, blah. Let me get back to you on that one. And then you kind of just go through question after question after question, and you're selling to them. Yeah. And that's totally fine. They want to be sold to, right? They want someone who's going to actually take their hand and guide them through the process, as opposed to forcing them to figure every aspect out.
Yeah, exactly. And going back to what we were talking about before about credibility, if you're preempting questions, if you're aware of the questions that other people are asking, and they're thinking, oh, this person's very knowledgeable, why wouldn't I book with this company, with this person's company?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, true. And another thing that occurs to me is that when they're talking to their friends about we should book with these people, or maybe after the booking's been made and the friends are being hesitant, and when we say friends, romantic partners, school groups, church groups, whatever, right? It's representing a group, obviously. Then they can be like, well, look, I spoke with him. He had answers to every single one of my questions. And if you look at the website, they have a lot of detail about the information. Like, you can kind of lean back into the relationship, I guess, as a way of saying, look, we can trust these guys, or we can trust these people.
Exactly. That person essentially becomes your salesperson, right? So you're saying about you're selling to them. At the end of the day, they then have to go away and sell it to their group. So yeah, the more you can get them on side, then the better.
It's true. It's I love that you put it that way, because essentially what they're doing is they're not asking to be sold to, they're asking for help to sell it to their friends if they're getting in touch. And that's essentially what the website is a vehicle of. It's because if they pick you, then it's basically it's like, help me sell this decision to other people. Like, I wanna go swimming with pigs in the water in the Bahamas or whatever island it is, or frolicking with horses in Indonesia, and now help me sell it to the rest. And that's obviously if they've gotten in touch, despite the fact that you got all these answers on your website, it doesn't necessarily mean that your website's failed. It just might mean that you just need that additional touch point and your salespeople, or if you're not the salesperson, your salespeople just need to be trained of just like, look, don't get this person off the phone, just layer this person with all the information they need, and they'll become your biggest champion. So, yeah, I love it, Russ. So, wow, this conversation, this is incredible. This is meant to be like a quick little conversation, and we've ended up turning into almost an hour of pure gold, though. Pure gold, all killer, no fluff. That's Russell Astle-Coates. So, if someone wants to learn more about this concept, I think there's almost nothing they can learn more about. We've covered it quite thoroughly. But if you do want to learn more about Tourism Tiger, or someone wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Yeah, I mean, they can drop me an email, which is russell@tourismtiger.com. They can get in touch with us via our website at tourismtiger.com. They can speak with our sales team at sales@tourismtiger.com, or they can check us out on social media as well. Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, Russell with one L, right?
Yeah, but because it's so niche, my spelling, you can spell it any way you like, and it'll find its way to me.
Oh, really?
I had to have so many English. Yeah.
Yeah, I was hoping you would say that. You have to have so many versions of your email to make sure that people don't get it wrong. Awesome, Russ. Thank you so much. I'm so happy we were able to do this. This is a lot of fun.
yeah, no, thanks for inviting me along, Matt. Hopefully get the invitation for future series as well.